Evening descended upon Burma without warning. It was silent and uneventful. Smoke curling from houses up into the darkness dusk indicated that the women were busy with the preparation of the last meal of the day. Burma and her household were busy with the evening chores. Amma and her mother were peeling plantain for the evening fufu. Suddenly, kong kong, kong kong, kong kong, the sound of the drum broke the quiet evening. The voice of the chief's crier could be heard by people 4 houses away. They could sit in their houses and listen to whatever announcement the chief's the chief's crier could be heard. They could sit in their houses and listen to whatever announcement the chief had for the people, but they usually preferred to come out. It was a sign of respect for the chief to come out and listen. Good evening, sons and daughters of Burma, the crier began. The chief would like all Burma to note something terrible has happened to our land. The chief and his elders have discovered that some worthless citizens of these towns have defiled our land. They have shown disrespect for our chiefs. 2 days ago, thieves broke into chief's graveyard and stole gold anointments and other precious valuables. The chief and his elders are asking the citizens of this town to watch out for the thieves. Anyone who helps the chief to discover the items and catch the thieves will be rewarded. Kong, kong, kong. The crier made his way to other parts of the town while the people went back to their houses. That was news. To steal from the graveyard was unheard of. Amma reported the message to her mother. She refused to come out as she always did. At first, she expressed her dismay at the grave theft, but later she remarked, some traditions must die out. How can they still be burying gold with the dead? Chiefs when people go about poor and hungry. It was communal Labor Day. The men of Burma believed in pooling resources to work on community projects. During the week, the town council had announced that the school project was due to resume on Friday. They had stopped work at the peak of the farming season, but now that work on the farms had grown less, it was time to complete the renovation of the primary one class block. The men asked the head teacher if they could work on the Friday instead of the usual Saturday because there were funerals in the town almost every Saturday. Motorway granted their request, but refused to allow a full holiday for the pupils. Instead, he gave them a no-class holiday. The pupils would do some work in the school garden, the games field, or other odd jobs assigned by the school on duty. Anand and Adu strolled hand in hand on the school field. When they reached the classroom where the men were working, an elder who was a friend of Anand's father saw them and called, "Hey Anand, look at you. Come and carry this rubbish away. And you, Adu, see how your friends are working hard." He turned to one of the men and said, "Look at the boy. He's grown like a mushroom. He's already a big boy. When they give birth to you upon a hill," the other responds with a laugh, "you grow strong." His father had something on his hands. Suddenly, Anani felt a sharp paralyzing jab in his left foot. He screamed and jumped up. He threw away the board he had been pulling, held on to his foot, and began to jump up and down, wailing. "What's the matter?" shouted the elder who had invited them to work. He rushed to the boy's aid. By this time, Anani was rolling on the ground with pain. Someone shouted back nearby, "Snake! Snake! Look at it!" For some of the elders attracted a small dark snake. It wriggled under the heavy stones and sticks at where that were hollowed at it, but it still made an attempt to escape. While the snake was being battered to death, Anani was moaning in pain. An elder held the wailing boy under his arms and was trying to raise him up when the teacher arrived on the scene. It was Becky. "What happened?" she asked. "He has been bitten by the snake," replied the elder. Calmly, Becky bent down and surveyed the blood oozing out of the boy's left foot. "Bring him here," she requested, and turned to go into the classroom. Two elders held the boy and followed her. Ado had been watching. When they took Anani away, he quietly detached him from the crowd and dashed into the school garden. When he returned, he was holding a bunch of leaves which he had gathered from the thicket behind the garden. There was already a crowd standing around the helpless boy. His mother, Mansa, was one of them. Someone had already called her. Adu gave the herbs to the woman. "Please boil this," Anan's mother, he said. He had hardly finished when someone took the leaves from his hand and dashed off with them into the nearest house. It was Mary, the school's girls' prefect. Adu knelt down beside the friend. He was holding a brand new razor blade, which he borrowed from the school storeroom. He remembered clear how his father used to handle such cases. He held Anand's injured foot and carefully cut the spot where the snake had bitten. Then he pressed it. Blood oozed out. His father had once told him that such an action was bound to reduce the poison content of the blood. Next, he ground some of the leaves he had brought from the bush and pasted the residue on the wound. The juice from those leaves could reduce the effect of the poison. The elders looked on with wonder at the boy's calm and confident treatment. When Mary boiled the boiled leaves, Adu poured the concoction into the calabash and allowed it to cool off. Then he forced his friend to swallow the mixture. The reaction was fast. Anani began to cough until he threw up a greenish substance. He continued to cough and throw up. When the coughing abated, he looked up and stared at the people around. His eyes met those of his friend and Adu smiled slightly. "Take him home," Adu said to Mansa, who was too overcome with shock and relief to say anything. Adu was thinking about the events of the week that had just passed by. It was evening and he was in his room. He looked at his clothes hanging on the nails behind the door. 2 years ago, he would have been using those worn old clothes for the farm and other non-school activities, but now they were his only school uniform. The patches of the seat on the seat of his trousers and on his shoulders were sworn a week ago, after his auntie had complained about his carelessness with clothes. Did Ado think that her sewing machine was meant for the mending of clothes for fools like him? He closed his eyes. He could see Susa clearly. Teacher Ofori had told him many times to try to forget Susa, but it was the most difficult thing to do. Gradually, though, he succeeded in tearing his mind away from the village. A knock on the main gate of the house interrupted him. When the visitor was told to enter, he heard the voices of Anani and his mother. "Good evening, my friend," his auntie responded to Masa's greetings. "They say that when you mention a person's name, he is close by. I had just mentioned your name when Amma and I were talking about the price of tomatoes these days." "Oh, mention that again, my friend," Martha lamented, sitting on the chair that Amma offered her. "Now tomatoes have no market. It looks as if the whole of Burma is farming tomatoes," Goma said. Then she laughed at her own remark. This surprised Amma, who was bringing another stool for Annan. Whenever these two women met, her mother was a difficult person. Masa was the only woman who could make her mother talk so freely and happily. On his mattress, Adu was thinking the same as Amma, but with his own addition. Why was it that his auntie scarcely had regard for anybody except Masa? He was also surprised that two people so different should be so close. Perhaps it was not always true that only birds of the same feathers flock together. Those of different feathers could flock together too. As for Anand, he only gazed at Goma in bewilderment. Until very recently, he too had not understood why his mother should find so much favor in the eyes of a woman who made enemies of everybody except her daughter. But now he knew, and what he knew scared him. He had overheard it from his mother. Anani looked at Amma keenly and blinked. Goma said, "Congratulations, my friend. God has given back your son to us." She was referring to Anan and the snake bite. "You heard all the bad talk of Burma's witches, didn't you? They wanted to finish your son for you, my friend." "Say it again. They scared me, you know. But my boy is looking strong and healthy. As for God, he's not like those people whose names I don't want to mention. He is so kind to us." They all looked at Anani, who bowed. Amma was amused. She tried to see if Anani was shy so that tomorrow she could tease him at school, but she was disappointed. Anani lifted his head and stared keenly at Amma until the girl looked away. She got up and walked towards Adu's room. As the older women were engaged in matters concerning them, Anani got up too and joined his friends. After they had gone, as if Masa had been waiting for the chance, she said, "Anyway, I came here with a matter in hand. It's about my boy Anan. In fact, rather it's about your boy Adu. He saved my son. Everybody in Burma is talking about that. Without his medicine, my boy would be dead by now. My friend, I don't want to remind you of any pain, but your brother who was in Susa knew good medicine, which he has passed on to his son Adu." Goma looked at her friend. Mansa continued, "The reason we came here this evening is to show our appreciation for what your boy has done for our family. You know my husband has traveled. I really wanted to wait until he returned. But you see, the elders say that when appreciation is delayed, it loses its taste. When my husband returns, we shall come again." "Ah, my friend," Goma replied, "the hill and the antelope have no thanks." "I know," Masa replied, unwrapping something in a piece of cloth she carried. It was money. What I'm doing you should not despise because you know the tradition. Take this and buy something for the boy. It is not payment for what he did because no one can pay for life. Goma took the money. You mentioned tradition, my friend, Goma said, and we mustn't undo tradition. It's for the sake of tradition that I'm accepting this. But before she put the money away, Adu came out of his room. The two women looked up. Goma ignored him and began. The tradition of the fathers must be. I have something to say, Adu said as he walked towards the woman. It was a bold step that he was taking. Adu knew that. He also knew that what he was about to do could resist in repercussions he wasn't ready to bear. Yet he had to do it. The tradition of their fathers, Adu very clearly remembered what his father had said about his tradition of administering healing by herbs. About 2 years ago, he began. Don't tell us stories, Goma interrupted him. No, let's hear him, Masa said. My father told me how to stop minor bleeding with cassava leaves. A few weeks after he told me, I used it on my friend who cut himself with a razor blade. The next day, this boy bought sweets and gave me some, which I ate. When I told my father about how I helped stopping the bleeding, I mentioned that the boy was so happy that he bought sweets for me. Adu paused. When Goma coughed slightly, but they all remained silent, and so he continued. My father was disgusted about the sweets that he made do something that I will never forget. He made me buy sweets the next day and return them to the boy. It was embarrassing to do this in front of my friends at school. They said I was mean and proud, but my father explained to me that the medicine he administered to people were absolutely free and in no circumstance should I receive payment of any kind of treatment. The meaning of Adu's story was obvious. Amma and Anani gaped at him. It was the last thing they expected him to do. This is not a gift, my son, Mata said. This is just I told you my father exactly that. Let her finish, Goma shouted at Adu. When an elder is talking, you don't interrupt. You see what I've been telling you, Mansa. You heard the way he spoke, so proud, so disobedient. And when I try to discipline a child like that, people think I'm a bad woman. Adu noticed the anger in her voice. I'm sorry, Adu apologized. Let him go on. Go on, Adu, Mansa said. I told my father that the boy was not buying the sweets because of me. We bought sweets all the time anyway, but father wouldn't hear that. Just because the boy, when he was giving me the sweets, mentioned the help I gave him. So what are you saying? Mama asked. Are you wise than us here? Adu didn't say anything. Go to your room at once, Guma shouted. Anand's mother, Adu said as he walked away. I wash my hands of any curse that may come by the giving of that gift. What Adu said sent sparks of fire through Guma. She got up in flurry. Suddenly Adu felt a sharp pain that went the full breadth of his back. You stupid orphan, 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 foolish boy, son of a god. You, a fool like you, insulting the elders and cursing us? Fool, fool, fool. The words and the wipes fell together. Anani and his mother were so shocked that for a moment they didn't know what to do. Ado's body felt as if it were on fire. He tried to escape. He made for the gate, but Goma caught him and pulled him back. His shirt tore, into and sent him crashing onto the cement floor. Goma dragged him along. Masa realized the seriousness of the situation, pounced on Goma and tried to pull her away from the bleeding boy. Goma gave Adu a final slap and pushed him against the wall. Adu fell with a thud to the hard floor. "Foolish boy," Goma shouted. "Say that again and I will slaughter you." "It's all right, Goma," Masa said. "What did you do that for?" "Can't you see the boy is stubborn?" Ado attempted to sit up, but everything rolled around so fast he was forced back to the floor. He coughed hoarsely until he choked. He spat blood upon the floor. Amma looked confused. What had caused this sudden attack? She looked at her mother and saw her eyes flaming. Suddenly, Adu rose on his feet, looked his auntie in the eyes, and blurted out, "I hate you. I hate you. I hate you with all of my heart. God will pay you for your wickedness. I hate you and I could kill you. Kill you, kill you." He coughed till he was out of his breath and choked again. "You could kill who?" Goma spat the words out and moved towards Adu, who stood defiantly as if ready to effect his threat. "It's your mother you will kill, not me," said Goma. And, as if on second thoughts, she decided to leave the boy alone. Adu limped to his room and sat on his mattress. As he bowed his head, he began to cry, not so much from bodily pain as from loneliness and sorrow. He felt a hand touch his shoulder. He looked up. Amma was holding a bucket of water and a towel. "I'm sorry about this, Adu." Amma tried to console him. "I don't know what to say. My mother is too wicked, and I don't know why." Adu was quiet. Amma dipped the towel in the lukewarm water and began to wipe out the dirt and blood stains from his body. When Anani and his mother left the house, Goma, still angry, burst into Amma's room. "You're finished, Adu," she bellowed. "Finished? You saw the money they bought? It would have bought your school uniform and paid your fees for 1 year. Do you think I can always find the money to meet all these expenses? That bad habit your father planted in your head will make you suffer in life. You're finished. Your uniform will remain upon your body like threads." She stormed out. That night Ado had a nightmare. His spirit was broken. He felt the little light in him giving way to darkness. As he tossed about in the bed, he felt like giving up on life, to say goodbye to his world and be gone forever and ever. He drifted into darkness against his inner will, as if he was being pushed into a deep well full of friendly faces. The faces were weird. He saw a pair of eyes staring at him. He thought he was about to recognize the faces when the stranger's eyes blinked. Now the face was no longer a human face. It was a face of a leopard. Cold fear surged into him as he was forced by a power of greater than himself to look at the very object that drove fear into him. The leopard now rose from the deep well and moved towards him. He screamed and turned towards his parents, whom he saw standing beside him. As the leopard approached, everyone dispersed. He saw the beast running after his mother and his little sister. He himself held on tightly to his father as they stood there helpless while the leopard tore them into pieces. His father to rescue them, but he was too late. Now the leopard turned and ran after his father. Before his eyes, the animal attacked his father and conquered him. He screamed and took to his heels. He turned to see the devouring beast dashing after him. When he looked ahead, he saw his friend Yarrow standing by. Quickly he threw himself upon his friend, panting and fighting. He was sure the animal was going to get them both, but to his surprise, the beast stopped shortly, unable to approach them. Something seemed to be shielding him and Yarrow against the approaching force of the beast. He was, he was the animal spitting fire while gazing at him. Then, as he stared into those fearful eyes, the animal changed into a human being. There before him stood his auntie and his eyes were blazing. Now his auntie smiled. Adu saw her fangs sticking out and her tongue sneering at him. Cold chills seized him. Was that his auntie? The woman now stretched out her hand and beckoned him to herself. When he vehemently refused to go, she got hold of him and tried to pull him by force. He was so shaken that he screamed at the top of his voice and tried to free himself from her grip. Adu was still screaming when he opened his eyes. He was alone in his room. Quickly he rose to his feet and rushed to the door. When he opened it, he saw his auntie and Amma standing there. He screamed and slammed the door shut. Goma went away, but Amma opened the door and entered. What's the matter, Adu? What? You've been screaming at the top of your voice. We thought something was happening to you. Is it already daybreak? Yes, Amma replied, and asked with curiosity. What happened to you? Was it a bad dream? It was a bad dream, and Adu didn't attempt to hide it from Amma. He told her everything. Amma was petrified. My mother turned into a leopard. That was what I